first thing I want to talk about is the boilerplate. Boilerplate is something that an element that is reusable, that is always the same, and it is you use it again and again. So it is reusable in every file that you want to create. So there's a shortcut that has been created to help you create that stuff without having to write again and again and again. So you understand? So when you type this what's this thing icon sign called exclamation mark. So this exclamation mark, when you type it, so let me go back. When I type it and you see the first one and you see something called emmet abbreviation. So this emmet abbreviation is like something that comes with VS Code that allows you to it suggests things for you. So this icon signifies that boilerplate. So all those things, you don't need to type them every time you try to create a new file of something. So if you are creating let's say you are creating like 100 pages in your website, it means that you have to keep writing this same thing in 100 pages. But because there's a boilerplate, like there's a shortcut that you can type, which is this exclamation mark, and when you press enter, you see what is going to come up. You see everything that is here. It is what you need in every of your website page. So if you look at my other VS Code and you see from here, you can see all those things are here. Everything is here. All those things you just saw here, because I've added some other code here, so you might not really know what I'm saying, but you can see this head, everything, and you see the same thing here. All these things are needed in every file of your code. So I have some other files here. I have like contacts.html, and you can see everything is still here. You see the doc type is here. The hobbies.html, everything is there. So if you have more than, this is just 3, and it might be easy to type actually. But if you have more than 100 in 100 pages in your website, you can't be typing this thing 100 times. You get tired. And as a programmer, one thing we programmer does is we do lazy work. So there's this lazy thing we do. We always have boilerplates. We always have variables. All these things that we have, it helps us to. So when we want to reuse them, we don't need to create them from scratch anymore. We just use that particular thing and just use it to, create what we want to create in our new pages. So we don't need to keep rewriting all the time. Imagine you have to write all these things 100 times in your code. Let's move to the next thing. So how do you structure your text? So all these texts, yesterday, I think I've explained this yesterday. All these texts you see in your code are all content. So all these content, text are not the only content you can have in a page. So you can have pictures. Like if you look at the website that I created, this website, if I go back to the home page, you can see I have a picture here, and this picture is also a content. You understand? You can have videos also on your website. Those videos too are also content. So you can always have different content in your page. So it's not just text. When I mean content, it's not just text. So these contents are wrapped inside an opening and closing tag in HTML. Yesterday I explained what opening tags and closing tags are. So I don't think I need to explain that now. So the opening tag is what opens the content, not the code. The content is not a code, it's a text. So when you see something like this, look at this one, title document. I hope you guys can see this code very well. So this text here is a content, it's not a code. Code does not show in your browser. So if you look, everything that is here, it doesn't show the code. You can see there's no code here. The only thing you are seeing are just the text. Imagine we are showing code in the browser. The people that are going to browse your website, they will not understand your website because it's full of code, and you can't expect everybody to know a particular code. not everybody is a programmer, so they won't understand. So anything that is showing on your website is the content, while the things that you use to format those contents are your code. So now this is a markup language, and it's an opening tag and a closing tag. So like I said, opening tag is the one by the left, closing tag is the one by the right, and what is inside them is the content. So everything all together is called an element. You understand? So all of this is an element. And I explained that there are nested elements. That is what I mean by parent and children relationship. So if you look at this first one, this one does not have a closing tag, and I will explain that in a bit. So what I mean is, when I say something does not have what something has a parent-child relationship, it means that you are nesting an HTML tag inside another HTML tag. So anything that has this thing, brackets, angle brackets, and in front by the left and right hand side, and you see a text inside, all those things are called tags. So this one, there's an angle bracket by the left, by the right, everything here has it, and all these things are called tags, HTML tags. But this one does not have it. This document does not have it. So this document is a text or a content, you understand? And this content is what you expect to show in your browser. So what these tags does is, anything that is inside of them, they format it in a way you want it to be formatted. So this title is telling the browser. So all these tags, they are just talking to the browser. That's what they do. So these tags, this one, let me close this one. It's disturbing me. So this one here is telling the browser that this thing inside of it that you want to display is called a title. It's the title of the page. That's what it is telling the browser. So when the browser comes and see your code, it's going to see this as a title. Whatever that is in between this tag, these tags, this opening and closing tag, is going to see them as a title. So HTML tags helps you to format your content. It tells the browser how to format your content. So if you have a bold tag, what that tag is saying is, browser, when you see what is inside this tag, I'm not saying body, I mean bold tag. This bold, when I mean bold, I mean this. So this tag is telling the browser that this is not a tag, I'm just using it to explain. This is just a text. So it's telling the browser that I want you to bold this particular text, and it's going to do that for you. Let me show you what I mean by that now. So I'm going to say bold text, and then I'm going to save it. So you need to make sure that you save your file every time you type something new into your code. So when you if you want to show anything in your browser, so you need to come here and click on go live, this thing under here. And the reason why this is here is because of that VSCode extension that we actually installed that time. That extension is called live server. So if you type here live server, you are going to see live server here. So this is it. When I click on it, you see, oh, this is not it, sorry. Let me, okay, so this is it. It's this one here. So you can have different ones, but it is this one here that I'm talking about, the one made by Retweak Day. Yeah, so this is the live server. So it's because of this thing I'm able to see this here. So if you don't have it, it means that you won't see this here if you don't have that live server installed. So if you don't have it, you can try and download it now, yeah, so that you can see. So when you download, you install it, and then you see this here. So when you save your file, you will see this here and click on it, and it's going to start something and open it in your browser by itself. You don't need to even open your browser. Your browser does not need to be opened. It's going to automatically do that for you, and then display whatever that is supposed to be here. So if you notice this bold text, when you get here, this browser, what happens with the code is, when you open a particular code on your browser, the browser is going to read from the top here, and when it gets to this place, it's going to look at the B tag and it says, okay, what this B tag means is that I should bold whatever that is inside, and it's going to bold the text. That's what it's saying. So, and that's why it's doing it here. So if I change this from B tag to I tag, I means I want to make it italics. So you can see that I want to show you something before I go to the browser. When I type something new, you can see this circle, this white circle around here beside the name of the file. This white circle, it means that your file is not saved yet. So when I come here and click on save, you will see that the circle will disappear immediately. So when I click on save, it's going to, you can see it has disappeared. It means that this file is saved when the circle is not there, that white circle. But when the circle is there, it means that you've not saved it. So you need to save it, and you need to save every time, especially for those that are not using a system with backup. So when they take light, your system will go off. Imagine you've written 2,000 lines of code and you've not saved your file. That means when they take light, you have to start again. So you have to save your code. Every time when you are working, make sure you are saving it. So when I save and I come back to my browser, you can see that this is now bold. It's not more a bold text. It's a text in italics. So it's no more bold. The reason is because this I is telling the browser what to do with what is inside here. So this doctype.html or doctype.html, you can see exclamation mark, doctype, HTML, something. So this one is also a tag, but it's a type of tag. This is where I'm going to talk about different types of tags that we have, or elements. So it's not just tags. So like I said, a tag is just this one here and this other one here. So this is a tag. There are two types of tag: opening tags and closing tags. You can also call them starting tag or ending tag, but I always call them opening and closing tag. It's the same thing. So this opening tag is just a tag, and this closing tag is also just a tag. But you see this one that is inside here is called a content, and everything all together plus the tags and the content is called an element. I think I've mentioned this multiple times, so you guys should know that now, that everything here is elements. So this one too, you can see the difference. This doctype.html does not have this closing tag. Why? The reason is because this is also an element now. So if you look at this element here, it's also an element. I know I said only this one without the content is not an element, it's a tag. But this one right here is not just a tag, is an element. And the reason is because we have two types of elements, and one is empty elements. We have another element called empty element, and this one is a full element, and there's another one called empty element. So what is an empty element? When you say something is empty, an empty element is an element that does not have a content. You understand? But you cannot just pick any tag and make them empty elements. You see, this I will do nothing without this content inside here, but this one will do something without a content, because that's how it's supposed to be. So an element that does not have a content does not need a closing tag, because there's nothing inside, so it does not need anything to close. The reason why we have a closing tag is to show that that particular thing we are trying to do with this content stops here. So the next, anything we are going to write next is going to act differently from this. So it's not going to have the same effect. You understand? That is why we have this closing tag. So if I have another thing here and I say bold it, and I say bold, so this bold text is supposed to be bold. Let me save it. So I'm going to say save, and when I go back to my website, you can see that this one is bold and it does not have that italics effect on it. And the reason is because I already stopped having this italics here. You understand? I already stopped this effect. I already told the browser to stop this effect here, not here, not to continue. So when it gets here and you see that I've closed it, it's going to stop there and continue with the rest of the things. So it's just when it comes here, when it stops here, when it gets to this place, it now sees that, okay, this is a different thing, and then it will now identify this as what it is. You understand? So that's what it does. That's why we need to always close our tags. But this one is an empty element. There's no content. We don't put content inside an empty element. The only things empty elements have are attributes, and I'm still going to talk about attributes later in this course. So now it does not have an empty element, but it's still an element. It's not just a tag. So there are specific elements, and if you want to know that, if you go to your classroom and you go to the resources tab and we look for that resources tab and we click on this resources website where we can get all the resources, you see that I have a website, I have a link here called MDN documentation. When you click on MDN documentation, it will take you to a particular documentation where you can read about anything. So this one is about heading, and you can read about a lot of things here. So let's go to HTML elements. So introduction to HTML, and let me see whether we can find HTML. Okay, let's look at this, whether we can find elements here. So elements. I'm trying to look for that. So okay, I can't find that. I can't actually find the elements here. Elements. Okay, so this is it. If you look at this MDN documentation, you see most of us, we read these documentations a lot to understand a lot of things, and it's one of the things you should do. That's why we have it here. So always go to this MDN documentation. There are a lot of documentations actually. This is another one, devdocs.io, and I always prefer this devdocs because it's simpler. Like, I love the way the design of their website is not like this one that is too much of information in one place. So I don't really like the design. You might get confused. But this one, you have everything here. So this is HTML that we are looking at, this element. You can see the way I found elements easily. Yeah, I had to come and look for before I get it. So yeah, this is elements, and you look for which element you are trying to read about. But let me still come back here and still talk about the anatomy, which I already talked about. So you can see the opening tag here, this P. So, and sometimes you also come and read these things yourself. So like I said, when I was talking about this thing, I said you have opening tag and closing tag, and you can see that whatever is inside here is called content. You can see where this line is coming from and where it stopped is called content, and this one is opening tag and this one is closing tag, and everything all together is called elements. So you can see it said the opening tag is the name of the element, which is P for paragraph here, wrapped in opening and closing angle brackets. So this opening and closing angle bracket rather. Then this opening tags marks where the document begins or starts to take effect. So we want this to be a paragraph and stop here. So it precedes the start of the paragraph text. So I think when you visit all these things and read about them, you understand whatever I'm explaining more better. You can see the content. This is the content of the element. It is the paragraph text. This one is the content of the element. So when you come here, you read a lot about all of these things so that you can understand. And I talked about nesting elements. So it's an element that you placed inside of another element, and all of this, everything is here. So you need to read all these things in order to understand it. So what is a doc type element? A doc type HTML tag is an empty element that tells the browser the version of HTML you are writing. To tell the browser that this is HTML5, you have to put this here, doctype.html. This line, this first one here, is what it means. So it's like document type. The document type is HTML and the version is version 5. So if you go to your browser and you browse any website, let's say I want to browse what site can I browse here? Let me browse something like welcome to XD. Okay, let me browse this one, YouTube. So coming to YouTube website now, if I right click on here and go to inspect, you see this inspect, what it does is it opens your developer tools. So there's a developer tools in this what's it called, that comes with Chrome. So when you right click, you can do anything in your developer tools. Maybe check the network of your device, your network, and you can also check a lot of things. So this is the developer tools opened here, and you see the code that was written to make all these things work like this. So all the code is supposed to show up here, but my network is so slow, like it's very, very bad. Now these are all the codes that were written to show all of this. So everything is here. Look at all the HTML code that they wrote. This is just the HTML. If you want to see CSS code will open by the right hand side here. Now this HTML code, if you look at the top, I don't know if you can see it very well. Let me try and zoom in. So if you look at it, you can see the top. The first thing they wrote is that doctype.html, doctype HTML rather. I don't know why I keep saying doctype.html. So this doctype HTML is here. This is it. So it's saying that if YouTube is a big company and they have one of the best developers. So their developers are even writing the same way everybody's writing. It means that this is the standard way of writing code. So you can see that even in the code, they have this HTML, this thing that is here. And if you check my code, I have it here also. After that doctype, I have this one, this tag here. And if you look at theirs, it's the same thing. And after that tag, they have something called head tag, and then they have body, which is the same thing that is in my own code too, which is here, head tag, and after the head tag is the body tag. This one is inside the head tag, not outside. So after the head tag, the closing head tag, you see the body tag. So all these things are boilerplates, like I tell you, like I just mentioned before. And even YouTube is using that same boilerplate because it's the standard way of writing your code. And this here is CSS, but we are not talking about CSS today. So now what I'm trying to explain is this thing is important. If you don't put it, your browser will still show your code, but it will not show it, it will not display it as HTML5, because it will display it, but it doesn't understand if it's an HTML5 or not. And one thing is that as these people update this code from HTML4 to HTML5 to HTML2 and all of that, when they update them, they change some things. And when they change these things, you cannot use them in the latest ones. Even if you use them, it will not work very well, because you see these browsers, the people that made these browsers, they keep updating the browsers too. And when they keep updating them, the browsers will not accept some things anymore. So if you look at, let's go back to this documentation, you can see, you will know some things here. So let me go to HTML tags. Let me look for, okay, let me go to this place and look for HTML tags. Look at HTML tags here, and you can see different HTML tags. There's one I'm looking for that is not used again. Okay, it's not here. These people did not put it here. So let me go back to this place and look for, okay, so here, let me close this one. And if you look at this place, you see these are all the tags that are available in HTML. You can see HTML element references, so it's inside the references tab. You can see one here, acronym, and you see something beside it, an icon beside it. This icon is like a delete icon. It means that this one is not, you can't use it anymore. Look at it. If I click on it, they are supposed to talk about it here, and you see something called deprecated. Deprecated is a word that you always see as a programmer. You use this deprecated word a lot of times, or you see it a lot of times. And the reason is because a lot of times there are some things that goes, like they downgrade them, they don't use them anymore, that they go into extinction. And when something goes to extinction, it means it's dead, it's not used again. It's not alive anymore, it's not there anymore, it is not in existence anymore. So when you see deprecated, it means that this feature is no longer recommended, so you should not use it. It will affect your entire program or your website. So you can see a lot of things are deprecated here, a lot of things. You should not use them. When you see this kind of things, don't use them, especially when you see the this thing beside it, the icon the delete icon beside it. Don't use them. Then you can now change the title of your page. So the title of our page is going to be my personal, sorry, it's supposed to be P, my personal website. So now the title of my page is my personal website. So moving on, I've talked about this one. Then this other one is just an HTML tag to tell us that this is an HTML file, and then it's also telling us that it's the root of our HTML. Without it, the browser will not see this as an HTML tag, even if the browser now display everything here, because this is a text editor. This VS Code is called an IDE, but it's also a text editor. So you can type something without all this code and the browser will still show it. If you don't believe me, if you don't want to take my word for it, let's try it and see whether the browser will show something or not. Okay, let me just delete everything. So I'm going to delete everything and I'm going to type something that browser show this. So when I save it, now live reload will not be possible. I'm going to explain this later. So when I come back to my, this is it. When I come back to my browser here, you can see it's showing it. Browser show this. Now, even though there's no code at all, it's just a text. The reason why it's showing it is because this particular thing we are using to show this is a text editor. So even if you type ordinary text without code, it's going to show it in the browser. You understand? But that's not what we are trying to do. We are trying to write code. If you show it like that, if you show it like this, you are not formatting this thing. So the browser will just show it as a plain text. It will not show it as, maybe you want to bold this. You need to write code to bold it. So if you don't write code, you cannot bold it. So that's how it is. So you should always have that here. So if they can start with this and end it with, so if you look at the end of, let me try and see if I can, let me close that body. So you can see that the beginning is HTML and the end is also HTML. So you need everything that you are going to write in your code should be in between the HTML opening tag and the closing HTML tag.